Good morning, Xcellence family. This is Kristina Suengas, Agent Concierge for both Xcellence Mortgage and Xcellence Title. I have the opportunity to meet with Paul Sardon, our title attorney. Good morning, Paul. How are you?
Good morning, Kristina. Doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Great, great. We always appreciate the opportunity to learn something. Paul has a wealth of knowledge as it relates to title and real estate transactions for many years. So our question to you, Paul, our title attorney, is the trim notices for real estate taxes are starting to drop in the various counties throughout Florida.
Right.
Whether you have a primary home, an investment property, or you just closed on a new home,
Right.
there are some things that we would like our agents to know and encourage them to be kind of up to speed on what some of the parameters are as to the dollar amounts, and if you have a choice in the matter to dispute anything you might see.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So it is the trim notices are out in Dade and Broward. Most places they're out throughout Florida. When you receive those notices, the important thing is to make sure that the exemptions on there are all there. There should be, if it's a primary residence, they have the homestead exemption. I had one client who we filed the senior exemption for, and we had to double check, make sure that was there. So when it's your homestead property, year to year, your taxes don't change much, right? Because it's capped at a 3% increase. When you have investment properties is when you really want to look at those values that the county is assessing your property at. And if you feel like it's being assessed beyond the value, like it's a little bit high, and there's some comparables that you want to use, you do have a limited window. I know the date, I think it's September 17th, I think Broward September 18th. You have a limited window within which you can appeal to the Value Adjustment Board and show them evidence of other properties or issues maybe with the property that make it so it's not worth what they think it is. So a lot of people do that. A lot of investors do that. The good thing with that, the reason why we're talking about this for the Xcellence agents is I have seen some agents, and I think it's smart, that use this as a time to kind of reach out, connect with past clients, especially if you have investor clients. You can call them up and say like, hey, how's your trim notice? You can see these all online, at least in Dade, but you can say, hey, how's your trim notice? What ends up happening without fail this time of year, some people who are, especially investors, when they receive that tax notice, the taxes jumped up and they might start thinking about selling. They might be motivated to sell now because they say, wait a minute, my taxes are now, double what they were. I don't want, this isn't a good investment anymore, or I want to get rid of this. People don't like paying taxes. So now is the time where maybe that person that was on the fence about selling those prospect for, some of our agents, maybe they can contact them again and say like, hey, how's, did you get your trim notice? Are you going to dispute the value? Is there anything I can help you with? And maybe that will get you a listing. I have seen that happen. The other thing is when people, especially new buyers, right? So people that close, let's say at the end of let's say they closed a year ago, they closed last summer, and they bought a house. That house was, their taxes that were prorated at closing and that they paid at the end of last year were for 2023, which were based on the previous owner's taxes. Sometimes that previous owner may have lived there for 20, 30 years and had homestead, so they had low taxes. Now this year, those clients that were your buyers, they bought last year, this is their first year really experiencing that initial shock because it's that jump in the taxes for the new assessed value. Once they get through this first year, they're going to be okay because it's capped at the 3%. But the first year is the jump, and then a lot of times, people weren't aware of that. We always explain it at every closing, but people forget, or maybe they close somewhere else and they didn't explain it, and now it's like my taxes went from $3,000 to $10,000. Now my mortgage payment is going to go up significantly. I don't know if I can afford this. They may want to sell it. They may need guidance. They may appreciate that if an agent reaches out to them during this time and remember for future business. So it's just a good time. You kind of have an excuse to touch base with the clients. And then the last thing I'll say about it is that it's a good tool if you have a closing in progress right now, where it's that scenario where your client's buying a house from somebody who's maybe lived there for a long time. Make sure taxes are being prorated based on under the amounts in the trim notice. So maybe somebody bought it last year, for example. We have a case like this right now, where an investor bought the property off of somebody who had it for a long time. The taxes last year were still low, but this year the trim notice is out, and those taxes are significantly higher because they lost all the benefit that person had. So when they're selling this property now, we need to make sure to give the buyer appropriate credit when we prorate it based on what they're going to pay. Because if we go off last year's taxes, we're using this lower amount, and then that'll be a big surprise to the buyer when taxes come out in a few months and we didn't prorate according to that. So it's a tricky time of year for us as closing agents. A lot of times, also, if you're buying with financing, lenders at this point will require us to hold taxes in escrow. We don't know the final tax bill yet. This is not a tax bill that came out. It's a notice of the proposed tax bill. You notice on it, there's a couple different options. They haven't finalized the budgeting yet. So we don't know, there's two different options, usually a higher and a lower one. And depending on what they adopt, that's going to be what you're going to pay. Some lenders that we start doing closes now September and October will say you need to hold the 2024 tax bill, tax amount in escrow to us. So we're holding this, and then come November, we see what the final is. And we have to collect the highest possible amount based on the trim notice, and hope that it's lower, and then we can refund. But those are all just things to consider when you're closing at this time of year. It can get a little tricky with that.
It is, and it's true. In 2 months, the tax bill drops, and then if we go based on last year, there'll be a big differential there.
Yeah. And then the other thing is make sure your clients, if they close with you and you want to reach out to them, also review it with them. Make sure that if they filed for Homestead because they closed last year and they filed for Homestead for this year, they received it. If they did portability from another property that maybe you sold for them into the new house, make sure that was applied correctly, because you can also appeal if exemptions were not applied correctly. So now is the time to check this between now and mid-September, because I get calls every year, November 1st, hey, I got my tax bill, they didn't do this, and you missed your window. You have to wait till next year. So it's just something to keep in mind. It's better to be early on it and even question it. And if you don't get it, it doesn't really cost you anything. If you challenge the value on investment properties, there's companies, we personally don't handle it because there's a lot of good companies that do it, and they do it usually on contingency basis, where they'll appeal your taxes for you. If it's an investment property, they'll appeal it for you, and then they'll take 30% of whatever they save you. So if they save you $1,500, you pay them $500. But if they don't save you money, you don't pay anything. And you pay like a $29 fee to file it. So that's there's options, but now you gotta be on time. Once you miss the deadlines, you're out of luck. So
I think that's the key. Don't just disregard that trim notice. You mentioned recently we've seen investment properties really increase in the tax rolls.
Yeah, the taxes, because values have jumped, and there's not the same cap on investment properties that there is on homestead properties. So homestead, you don't feel it in what you pay, even though your value is going up. Like your value could go up $150,000 one year to the next, but it doesn't mean you pay more because you have the cap because of the homestead. But if it's an investment property, now there is a cap, but it's a much higher cap. So taxes usually jump 10, 15, 20%. You see that pretty commonly. And, it's a big shock, especially if it's an investment. They plan for a certain return on their investment, and now the taxes are throwing that out of whack. Insurances have gone up. So these might be people that we can contact and may become sellers. Very
true. Then now the scenario changes for them and they decide that this is not something they want to carry on going forward.
Right.
It's true.
Yeah. So that's just, and again, if anybody runs into this issue and you have your clients and they have questions, feel free to reach out. Hopefully we can get you guys more listings and get more closings so we can all continue helping people.
Absolutely. That's what we're here for. And we always appreciate the time that you take, Paul, to guide us and just be proactive. We know this is the time frame. Let's be aware of what's dropping in the mail. Let's be ready to talk to our clients. And if any questions come up, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you, Paul, for taking the time with us today. And you know that you can reach us. You can call us directly at our corporate line, 305-595-7355, the option for title. You can also email us directly at support@excellencetitle.com. And we are here to help and assist any questions that come up. Let us make your job easier and help you and guide you through the process. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Paul. And until next time, we wish you a wonderful week. Thank you. Bye.